Well, how's it going, Mariner fans? What an exciting weekend. Josh Naylor has been re-signed. This is something that Mariner fans have been asking for since Naylor was still playing in the regular season, and certainly as he continued his elite play into the 2025 postseason. And it's really cool to think about a few things on this, but we'll try to condense it down. The first is how when they traded for him in July, the Mariners really struck gold because not only was he a perfect player for what they needed at first base, but he was a perfect player for this city, for its fans. I mean, Josh was instantly taken to, and it's easy to see why, because beyond the great plays, first of all, heck of a hitter, right? 299 and 54 games with the Mariners, but certainly a slick glove at first base. He made some really amazing plays, highly intelligent player, stole 30 bases, perfect 19 of 19 with the Mariners. Really crazy to think that he can do all that. But in addition to all of that, he's just a Seattle guy, man. Like, he is in that clubhouse, beloved. He took on a leadership role right away. And certainly that's not taking a knock on any of the other several leaders on that Mariners team, but Josh's voice carried so much weight right away. So that's the first thing I love about this. I want to dive a little bit deeper into what this says about the Mariners. This sends a message. This says, hey, like, we recognize what we did in 2025 and that it's not good enough. Even as great as it was, the closest this franchise has ever been to the World Series, they're saying we're all in. Because here we are 2 weeks into free agency. For perspective, this is the first major signing across Major League Baseball, all of baseball, for this offseason. And it was done by your Mariners. Just 2 weeks after the World Series ended, after free agency opened. Now, part of that is the mutual love that the Mariners have for Josh Naylor and that Josh Naylor has for the Mariners, okay? Because a lot of players, and rightfully so, will test the market and will let this go for a few weeks and months to try and maximize their deal. Naylor clearly wants to be in Seattle. And obviously the Mariners, they said in the days after the World Series that he was the top priority. In fact, that was Jerry DiPoto's exact words. He is a priority. Well, they proved that by signing him. But this says we're all in. This pushes everything to the middle. This says we are all in to win right now. Because when you think about what this deal means, again, we talked about getting the deal done quickly. Your top priority is signed in mid-November. Okay, so that means that anything and everything else that you want to address with this team can be done now and can be done in the next 2 to 3 months until we get to spring training. And there's a lot of things this Mariners team wants to do, and we can talk about that at a later date. But right now, we need to talk about the message it sends by, first of all, acquiring Josh Naylor in July, all in. Got you to Game 7 of the ALCS. Everybody did, but certainly the move of Naylor, bringing him to Seattle, was the big boost that they needed right there. And then now, knowing how much fans love this guy, knowing how important he was to this ball club on the field and in the clubhouse, you get the deal done right away. So this is really impressive stuff from the Mariners. And given the nature of it, that it happened so quickly, that it was so defined, for lack of a better term, that it was just so absolutely done so quickly, I don't think they're nearly done in this free agency period. We know they want to bolster the bullpen, not just getting another lefty arm in there, but certainly another high leverage arm. Certainly, because we saw how much those guys were worked at the end of the season. We've all heard the Tarek Skubal rumors. Now, the team's not going to publicly comment on that sort of thing, but they have the prospects to do it. And who knows what happens there. You know, how often in off seasons in recent years have Mariner fans, who I will always contend are the most loyal, most patient fan base in all of professional sports. In recent years, think about the lack of moves. I would say the last 2 off seasons. I mean, the biggest move going into the season was bringing back Jorge Polanco, who had his worst season in 2024. Now, he was awesome in 2025, right? But at the time, people were like, well, that's your big move for $7 million in a year? I mean, it worked out, but it was the end of January, and that was the biggest move. All winter fans were like, come on, give us something, give us something. Well, they didn't wait long this time around. You know, the year before was a really tough year. It was after the 23 season when they traded Gino Suarez. You know, they did some other things that just, it was like, wow, what is happening with this team? Like cost-cutting moves, so to speak. And here we are on the total opposite side. It took this playoff run, getting to the ALCS Game 7, 8 outs from the World Series. It took that for everything, I think, to finally set in like, hey, this is our window. Now, don't get me wrong. Jerry DiPoto and Justin Hollander, I think, have done a great job, and they've kind of operated with what they were able to. You know what I'm saying? And Now it's like, hey, look how close we are. Give us something here. And they have it now. And they've been able to sign Josh Naylor now. And certainly we'll wait and see what happens with Jorge Polanco. We'll wait and see what happens to Eugenio Suarez. Any outside talent that certainly they're eyeing at this moment. But they're not going to be the Dodgers out there spending hundreds and hundreds of millions. But you know what? I think the payroll is going to be increased from about 25 million, maybe more from what we saw last season. Nothing else, the arbitration and signing Naylor and everything in that regard. But I think you have to enjoy this. Certainly you enjoy Josh Naylor coming back. That's a huge story. But I think you have to enjoy the larger picture that this Mariners team is sending, that they saw how that run and what it did to this city, and they want it back. They want to run it back, and they want to go further. It wouldn't shock me if they were to bring back a Polanco or Suarez, even if they were less likely to come back than Naylor. Naylor, we always knew the Mariners were going to pull out all the stops for it, and it worked out pretty darn quickly. So it's going to be interesting to see how the rest of this offseason goes, and that's the bigger picture here. From future, I think we're talking about this offseason into the 2026 season, several seasons beyond that. That's going to be a real interesting look at what they do. But let's just look at the here and now. First base is solved. And you have a core in place of Josh Naylor, Julio Rodriguez, and Cal Raleigh that will all be in place through at least 2029, barring something unforeseen. But they're all under contract through at least that season and likely beyond that season. That is huge. That is a huge, awesome foundation for this team to build on, not to mention the elite pitching that we all know about. And with Naylor, you think about what I mentioned a moment ago, having first base solved. You go back for 20 years, first base has been an issue for this team. Ty France had an all-star season in 2022, but before that, there was good players. But are we talking about Naylor's quality? No, not since like John Olerud, maybe, And so to solve that position with the type of hitter that really this team thrives on is perfect. You got to remember, Naylor, that we mentioned the 299 batting average. We mentioned the 20 home runs, the 92 RBI on the full season between Arizona and Seattle. But the guy likes hitting here. You can't discount that. It wasn't so long ago Teoscar Hernandez wasn't bad-mouthing, but was just saying like he never got comfortable here. Well, it can be tough. The air coming off the water, the colder weather that we have in the beginning and the end of the season, Naylor thrives here. And I actually want to point you out to KOMOnews.com because I have a story. When we were in Toronto for the ALCS, I visited his high school, St. Joan of Arc Catholic School in Mississauga, his hometown. And it just tells you the kind of person that Josh is. Obviously, he's always been a baseball talent, but he still visits his old high school every offseason. Some of the teachers and faculty member we talked to there say that he still keeps in touch. They were invited to his wedding. I love the one story from Celine Wood, who was in the guidance office or is in the guidance office now, but was in the attendance office when Josh was a student. Josh was with his girlfriend and said, "Hey, we're going to get married one day." And well, they did. It's his wife now, Chantel. So it's cool to see the background of what, at least in part, made Josh Naylor the person that he is today. But this is a day to celebrate in every single way. Celebrate the immediate boost for several years to come that Josh Naylor is. 28 years old. He's still young. You've got his prime years that we spent here in Seattle. And he wanted to be here. He really wanted. This isn't just like, yeah, money talks and, just going to the biggest contract. No, because you know what? Like, he could have played teams off each other. And we don't know the extent of that, at least not yet. But the fact that he did it so quickly just means he loves Seattle and wants to be here. And he told me and other reporters as much, that he really loved playing here. And he saw the love from Seattle fans and how quickly it came in. So you guys watching this certainly have a part in this as well. No question about it. But again, larger picture, this is a turning corner. Now, we know the Mariners have always been active at the trade deadline. Look at Luis Castillo, look at Randy Arozarena, and of course this year with Naylor and Gino Suarez. But I think that now we're talking about a big offseason signing, at least the caliber we haven't seen since Robbie Ray. And it certainly that didn't pan out to an extent, but it was a big contract to pay out, if you understand what I'm saying. This probably won't be quite as much as what Robbie got, but it's up there. And it's the sort of win now move that fans have been clamoring to see for years. You've got it now. You've got it now. And let's see what else they do this offseason. the most impactful offseason, because how are you going to build on that 2025 Game 7 of the ALCS? You could sign everybody out there and it doesn't guarantee you're making the next step. Of course not. But you have to do everything possible to get back there, to run it back and then some. And Naylor is the definition of that. In this clubhouse, with this team, he is a special player. And the Mariners wasted no time making sure that he'd be a Mariner for a long time to come. So you got to take stock in that. Take stock that you can buy a Naylor jersey, feel good about it for a few years, and just know that this town is special to a guy like that, he's from the eastern half of the continent, from outside Toronto. He's played in Cleveland, played in San Diego, played in Arizona, played in a lot of places, right? But he wants to be here with all of you, and I think that's a really cool thing. He wants to be a Mariner, and he's going to be a Mariner for the next 5 seasons. Awesome stuff. We'll keep you updated on any introduction press conference moving forward with Josh Naylor, now a Mariner, signing a new deal with the M's.